FromSoftware released a new game, this time with Samurai, and it's been out for a bit, which means it's time for us to go through the tiresome ritual of someone somewhere bringing up the phrase easy mode, half of gamer culture having a collective cow about it, and the other half having a cow about the first half having had a cow. And you know, people ask me why this show used to be more of a comedy about fight scenes with magic ninjas. And it's because the alternative was having to actually engage directly with crap like this. I mean, we used to do puns. Don't you like puns?
I was actually wondering where the music was. The what now? Well, you said this was a karaoke bar. Oh, no. This is Gary Oak's bar. See?
Your green screen is terrible, and you should feel terrible about it.
Anyway.
Alright, so the TLDR here is that FromSoftware is mostly known for making Dark Souls and its adjacent spin-offs and play-alikes, which are really granular, super hard hack-and-slash games, chiefly beloved by those who beloved them for being really difficult but in a fair way that doesn't cheat. So through trial and error you can really learn the systems and balance and teach yourself to be good enough so that it's not so difficult and success feels like a real accomplishment after a sense. They've also developed something of a unique stylistic aesthetic and internal mythology, which you really only get to see if you really do master that severe difficulty, which leads some to ask whether or not it would ever make sense to include an easy mode for novice or new players, or just those less skilled who'd like to see what the big deal is, and others to violently reject the idea on the basis that challenges what these games are all about, and thus circumventing that is missing the whole point, whatever that means. What I've never understood about that is, so what? Who cares? I genuinely don't see why this doesn't begin and end with if the developers want to include one they should, and if they don't they shouldn't, the end. I mean, they publish large print books for people who can't see too well. They publish books in different languages for people who don't speak the original language. What's the big goddamn deal? I mean, shouldn't that be the end of it in any games conversation ever, unless you're like an investor or the developer's boss or anyone who has a financial stake in it and would have an opinion outside the bounds of what's best for creative integrity and player enjoyment? Otherwise, adjustable difficulty of any kind seems like the least controversial thing in the world to me, especially if you're not nerfing the rest of the game or taking anything out. No one's making you play an easy version if you don't want to. Nothing tangible's getting lost on your end and other people are gaining. That's the kind of win-win that only gets to happen in video games. We should celebrate the fact that this is one of the things that makes this hobby so cool. It can create new spaces without removing or decreasing an existing space. Almost nothing else can say that. But instead you always wind up with an angry blowback that's furious at the very idea someone else might get to enjoy this or that game in a different way than you did, or seeing the ending without putting in the work, or getting good like you did. And so what? It's a game, it's a toy, it's for fun, leisure. It's not your job or your life. It's something to do to unwind from your job and life, isn't it? Because if it's not, I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, it's part of my job, but I live in a TV, and I'm miserable. Look, I'm not denigrating the achievement of beating a hard game on hard, but someone else doing it on easy doesn't take away from that, does it? You know you did it, and you're the only one that can really matter to. There's not a cash prize or a social advancement of any real kind, or a tangible benefit to this other than the sense of personal pride, which is entirely subjective to the individual. Plus, it is a video game, fellas. Like, Dark Souls isn't boot camp, you're not training for anything. Even Flight Simulator isn't an actual flight simulator. To be honest, I don't even get this attitude when it comes to actual sports. Like, every couple of years, there's a new crop of assholes has kids in youth sports for the first time and freaks out about participation trophies, and we get these douchebag articles about how if everyone gets a trophy just to feel good about themselves, they'll grow up not learning the hard lessons of losing and achievement and not believing that meritocracy exists. Okay, first off, meritocracy does not exist. Holy shit, did you not see what Aunt Becky might be going to jail for? Look, even if it did exist, any meritocracy that's ever been instituted or attempted to be instituted in the history of human civilization has only ever lasted as long as it's taken the first rich and or powerful man to raise an idiot son that he didn't hate. And then that shit went right out the window and Prince Dumbass II inherited everything anyway. Secondly, yeah, I'm really sure that you did your best trophy that he got in T-ball is what taught your kid that the world doesn't run on justice or merit, and not like murderers not going to jail, bad cops not going to jail, presidents not going to jail. Pull the other one, bro. Now this makes me especially raw because I come from the era of Nintendo hard and arcade difficulty that this whole get good attitude fetishizes, back when games were broken and super hard to make them challenging and replayable, so I know firsthand that the idea that we just practiced till we were good at it was bullshit. No, we didn't. We cheated. Game magazines and help guides and tip lines weren't full of strategies and ways to time out your jumps and finger exercises to work on your reflexes. They were full of codes and cheats, places to clip through the walls, ways to unlock the developer menu and skip ahead to the end, extra life modes to turn you into a bullet sponge, passwords to unlock all the gear without earning it. Hell, do you know what this is? This is called a game genie. It's an override key you'd put between the cartridge and the console so you could hack the game with codes without having to actually learn to code.
I use it when I want to live forever, play to the end, and win. Maybe I want to start on level 15. No problemo. It makes cool games like Street Fighter 2 more exciting. Less frustrating. With Game Genie, it ain't over till we say it's over. Excellent!
Game Genie for NES, Super NES, Sega Genesis, and Game Boy.
Yeah, so much for retro hard. Look, if developers don't want to put in easy mode, that's their call, but I see no reason for anyone to have an issue with accessibility being added to a game when no one's forcing you to use it. And if you're worried that the option will be too tempting for you to use if it is there, well, maybe you should get good at resisting that. Just a thought. Anthony John Agnello, another of our terrific editors and contributors here on The Escapist, had a great piece up on the site recently that you should definitely give a read that's all about VR and gaming and how virtual reality is both this really cool thing finally coming into its own and also the interesting paradox of how, for all the talk about how it puts you deeper into a game, it also kind of does the opposite by making you even more aware of how limited your actions therein actually are. Anyway, reading it got me thinking about a whole lot of things, and for a change, it wasn't just about how I'm actually old enough to remember when virtual reality first emerged as a concept, and thus also old enough to remember just how often the gaming and/or tech industry has assured me, no, really, VR is gonna work this time. This time. This time. No, for real though, this time. This time. No, this time. No, for real, this time we got it.
Forces of darkness, empower me! Take me back to my virtual reality!
Of the virtual world.
But okay, what it mainly got me thinking about was something that really pisses me off about video games in general lately, because yes, I am a grump, so even nice, thoughtful things about gaming will very quickly remind me of something that pisses me off, and that's the constant talk about immersion. This is a word that I didn't feel like I used to hear all that much when it came to games and games design outside the specific VR niche, but now I hear all the time, and it always seems to describe some annoying or pretentious design decision that's invariably making a game less intuitive or less enjoyable, to me anyway, or obtuse in some way, but I'm supposed to regard as either necessary or an outright stroke of genius for increasing my sense of being immersed in the game, usually as it relates to narrative or interactivity choices. Why is this already somewhat esoteric storyline being pieced out or fragmented or relayed environmentally instead of just telling me what the scenario I'm supposed to be involved in here? It's more immersive that way. Why is the inventory mapped to the trigger scrolling? Why can't I just pause and bring up a full menu? Pausing and digging through your inventory would break the spell of immersion. Now yes, I pick on those two examples because they're both obviously bullshit. The reason for those design annoyances is entirely because all of game development today is overwhelmingly focused on the big money prize of online multiplayer open world, where pausing is less of a thing because it has to be, so you have to be going through inventory on the fly mid-action, and storytelling needs to be communicated in a way that still gets across while people are futzing around with their friends or doing stuff out of order rather than just, you know, showing a damn cutscene. And if this means the single player experience is going to get degraded in the process, apparently that just doesn't fucking matter. Either way, with apologies to the game designers out there to whom, for a change, I do not mean this in any way as a personal attack of some kind, I do not give a shit about immersion when it comes to games, and I cannot imagine I'm alone in this because, well, video games aren't immersive. They're interactive. And that very interaction, the fact that I am constantly aware that I am in control of the events taking place in front of me, and that they either progress or do not based around my engagement, is what ensures that I cannot become immersed in them. That's not a criticism, that's just a description of how a video game works. Now look, I'm sure your game is lovely and you put a ton of time into it and maybe immersion was somewhere on your whiteboard under project goals, but unless your name is Allegra Geller and you want me to plug one of those existence pod things into my spine or jack me into the Matrix or whatever, I'm not gonna get immersed in anything, and it's not even what I showed up for. I didn't buy Spider-Man to be Spider-Man. Being Spider-Man sounds dangerous and exhausting. I'm playing Spider-Man to push buttons that make Spider-Man do cool stuff.
Try to get up there in time, Spider-Man!
Watch me cut my web, Goblin!
Watch yourself fall, Silk Slinger!
Holy Hannah!
And you're running out of fluid!
Is this more action than even Spider-Man could handle?
Whoa!
Even my favorite games with my most beloved characters, worlds, aesthetics, stories, whatever, with the exception of playing like a survival horror game with the lights off if I want a better jump scare, even as a little kid I was never like, in this moment I am Mario or Mega Man or Link or Rygar or Kiko Cubicle or Strider or whoever. I always knew I was playing a video game. I always know I'm playing a video game, interactively, not immersively. Immersion, to me at least, is more of a passive sensation, like when I binge watch TV or there's a movie I really like and I don't really have anything else to do immediately at the same time, you know? Like, oh wow, today sucked, time to pour some scotch and binge watch Miss Sherlock. That, or like a good rock concert or a movie theater experience, is immersion entertainment to me. With video games, I'm not immersed. I can't be. The circumstances of playing one don't allow for it. I know I'm not Spider-Man or Kratos or Bayonetta or whoever because I can see them on the TV and the borders of the TV screen and my stuff on the shelves and the wall. I can feel the controller and buttons in my hands, feel my feet on the ottoman. I'm constantly aware that I'm sitting on my couch and not striding through the verdant plains of Hyrule, and I'm fine with it because it's a goddamn video game. Getting to sit on my ass and make the elf kids stride through the verdant plains of Hyrule is the reason I paid $60 goddamn for it.
No! Ganon hasn't attacked in weeks, and it's time you started earning your keep. There's chores to be done.
Now, you know, it does immerse me though, pull me in, get me more deeply invested, emotionally involved, connected to the characters in the world to the point where I care about what's happening, maybe even lose myself a bit in the action because I've got a direct back and forth sensory thing happening with doing the thing and the reason I'm doing the thing.
The pixel shading bump mapping? She kicks eye.
A good story. Good characters, compelling characters. Doesn't necessarily need to be some deep or overly complex shit. There's a whole spectrum of happy mediums between hey monkey, hands off the girl, and whatever the hell was eventually going on in Metal Gear. If immersion is the goal, a solid setup related in an engaging, compelling fashion will do the trick better than a lot of pretentious meta-psychological flashiness. Hell, I can still remember forcing myself through the impossible first Ninja Gaiden because I was invested in how the story would come out, and that story was just 80s anime boilerplate bullshit. And I promise you, no one is on pins for Squeenix to finish the Final Fantasy VII remake because they're just that eager to relive the circa 1997 Squaresoft menu system. Look, design however you want. I respect game design as an art form. I wouldn't tell David Lynch he wasn't allowed to not have chapter stops on the Mulholland Drive DVD because he thought letting people jump to the sex scene cheapened the narrative. I'm not going to tell you that you can't relay the plot to me by making me find a bunch of audio logs or do sliding puzzles or run voiceovers while I'm walking down an overly narrow hallway with the walking speed artificially slowed down or whatever, but I will tell you that I'm always going to be more annoyed than immersed, and the whole time I'm mostly going to be wishing that we could just go back to stopping the goddamn game for a minute, playing the cutscene that tells me what my next mission is so we can get back to the fun f***ing part of the game. Just a thought.